You're entering the FaciliCast, the liberal science of buildings, with your host, Jim Zerbel.
Welcome back to the FaciliCast with Jim Zerbel, the liberal science of buildings. I am so pleased to have Miguel Monterrey. He's the senior project manager at Brennan out of Milwaukee. So Miguel, so happy that you're here on the FaciliCast. Tell me now, what's exciting you right now? What's jazzing you up?
Uh, Honestly, right now, it's going to sound so cheesy, but just coming off of the Wisconsin State Facilithon and Skills USA competition that I was asked to be a judge for, I had no idea that this existed. I'm sorry about that, but hey, we got to fix what we don't know into what we do know, right? So I had the privilege of judging the FM portion, but obviously, as we're there all day, I was able to take a walk around and look at some of the other events going on. And man, I mean, to see the kids working from masonry to robotics to framing, woodwork, electrical, HVA, the whole thing was just, it blew my mind. And I haven't stopped showing everyone I can those videos that I took on my phone for that exact same reason. It's just the talent out there is extremely promising, and I can't wait to bring them into the trades and into the FM world as well.
Yeah, and Miguel, thanks for the free Facilithon and FM Pipeline Team program plug. Didn't know we were going to get that today. I'm glad you're excited about it. That's fantastic. And that's right. The Wisconsin event that was in April, and there was certainly a lot of action. I think there 50 some students that participated in that, and as a whole, I think there were probably about, what do you think, maybe 2,000 students at Alliant Energy Center. It was a lot.
Easy. They had the diesel mechanics out there working on trucks. They had the guys in robotics with the moving arms, and they had the drone pilots doing the obstacle course. I mean, from all that to jewelry and art exhibits for the guys doing welding, and young ladies. I don't want to be exclusive here. I saw young ladies working in the masonry competition. That's something I've never seen personally in my years growing up. Obviously, we had a male-dominated trade world, but that's not the world we live in today anymore.
I'm glad that you got to do some of that judging and experience and engaging, enlightening, and energizing the next gen of FM. Thank you.
Absolutely. The cool thing was really actually having some of the kids from the other trade competitions jump into the FM competition and see the alternative perspective, where they're coming from, not directly in the FM pipeline, but just adjacent to it. So it was very enlightening. I got to see what the future, I should say, how bright the future is looking.
Yeah, it gives us hope, doesn't it? And
very much so.
That's a scaled program that is just growing, and that serves sort of as the vehicle by which so many other programs, worthwhile programs, college programs, training programs, apprenticeship, you name it, can hinge off of it. It's pretty cool. So why don't you spend a couple of minutes telling us about your role? It sounds like you have a few of them.
Absolutely, yeah. Like you said, I'm with J.M. Brennan Mechanical. We are the largest mechanical contractor in Milwaukee proper. Obviously, there's way bigger than us in the state, and there's way bigger than us nationwide, but we do hold a firm hold in Milwaukee. We have over 88 service personnel out in the field every day. We have more than 800 trucks, service trucks throughout our entire fleet. So it's a pretty big operation, and I'm very glad to be a little cog in that big machine. So I'm currently a project manager for business development. I started off my career in HVAC mechanical, then I became a building automation control specialist in programming, and then tried my hand at sales. and I like it. I'm a people person, and much like this, I get to know the stories behind the people who are doing the work. That really is what inspired me into my current role, and more so, um, coming from a background, I have, single mother, immigrant to this country, and she had four kids, raising them all on her own, and that was my inspiration essentially for partnering with IFMA, partnering with JM Brennan, because they currently have something called JM Brennan University, coming across Facilithon and Skills USA to just to see this pipeline of young talent going into the trades, going into facilities. You need the building to keep standing, and we're the people that keep it going, you know? So
Yeah, I love it.
currently in my business development role, I've been looking for a lot of right angles as to what's gonna keep us moving into the future. When you think about business development, especially for facilities and trades, the future is what you can't focus on the now. The present is fleeting. You know, we have to look at the future and plan ahead so that we can transition, high school students into these knowledge-based realms, and college students into these professional roles. Uh, Through IFMA, we facilitate obviously the PFMA sustainability training. We have the CFM certifications, but right now, making young people aware of our industry and how it's crucial for any other industry to survive, we need to get people into our line of work. If not, all those pretty buildings, they're going to start crumbling. We are the backbone of what keeps the industry, every industry going.
Yeah, I really appreciate what you're telling me about that. I also understand you're a father.
I am. Luckily, I have a beautiful wife that puts up with me, and I was blessed enough that she gave me two children. I have a daughter who's 4 and a 2-year-old son who's now decided to find the highest mountain and jump off it every single day. But I'm there to catch him. So is my wife. Thank goodness. They're both little daredevils. Um, that's kind of my fault. I also coach kids Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and they've been on the mats with me since they were 2 weeks old. So I've done my best to make them fearless, and that's kind of the approach I want them to take into life, and just be fearless, and don't be scared to fail. Just keep going. We were talking about breathing a little earlier. I tell people, if you can breathe, you're still in the fight. Until that moment, you can keep fighting, keep going after what you want. That's kind of what I tell people. Whatever the problem is, stop for a second, take a breath, and then the problem will seem a little clearer than it did a moment ago. My message to the world is just breathe, look at your problems, and just step by step, instant by instant, moment by moment, you will be able to figure it out calmly. Yeah. And conservatively, you can move through almost every single problem.
I like it. It reminds me of meditation of sorts.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, that's where I kind of developed that mantra. And no pun intended, but I remember somebody asked, how long is a moment? And I decided a breath. A breath is a moment. That's long enough of a moment right there. And if you take a moment, take a breath, you'll be able to move forward. If you can take your breath, you can keep fighting. And that should give anybody enough inspiration, motivation to keep going for one breath longer.
I love it. Okay, let's bring that in, and one more breath for this particular FaciliCast. So with that in mind, let's talk about the whys. So what's your inspiration? What's your why? Is there particular things within your career, within your leadership positions that helps you navigate?
Honestly, it stems from my childhood. I'll be honest, I didn't have these opportunities. I grew up in South Florida, and a lot of the time, or I should say, none of the time, nobody ever spoke to us about these opportunities. A lot of the misconception and myths, especially around the trades or facility management, there's low wages, lousy hours, and they steer you away from that. Oh, you got to go to college and get your degree in, astrophysics or, civil engineering, or be a business major, whatever it is. And then you start realize, oh, and a big thing is obviously the military. That's what I got sold on. At 17, I signed my life away, and my mom co-signed on that. So it's always, if you're not going to college, go to the military. I was able to go to college, but I decided the military. And but I think, the Lord above had different plans for me, because ended up right before I shipped out to the Marine Corps, my leg broke in half. I have a titanium implant on my right tibia. And then I was like, well, what am I going to do now? I had to very quickly reassess my entire life. Ended up going to community college. I was like, man, I don't feel fulfillment here. I ended up working in some warehouses. Funny enough, wound up working at Microsoft. And then from Microsoft, I went to Intel. And then from Intel, once the same thing. It's like, I don't want to do this anymore. And then I left Florida, moved up here to Wisconsin, lived with my brother for a while until I found a job. I was, landscaping and everything, but then I found the trades, and I had a gentleman by the name of Ron Kilps, who sat me down and said, you know what you should do? You should really learn controls. And I was like, okay, cool. So, went from working in the mechanical service department for HVAC, then went out to controls and got certified as a programmer. And that's what really showed me that, there's some other little Miguel out there. There's a little kid who has no idea that their entire life, this has been waiting for them. I was out there chasing something that just wasn't right for me. And then this was here waiting for me this whole time, saying, you know what, you develop your skills, you develop what you're good at. For me personally, it was with technology. I'd always gravitated towards technology. And then guess what? Building automation. So I get to there learn a programming language, learn how how a building's entire mechanical system works, learn how sequence of operations determine whatever it may be, how the rooftop units coordinate with the baseboard heat, coordinate with the boilers, just that simple heating loop. If you can take that, okay, actually, let me rephrase this. I know I could show that process to a high school student, teach them exactly what's going on holistically, and say, repeat what I just said, and they'll do it. I like to give young people the credit and autonomy that they deserve to be human beings. They're just younger human beings, but nevertheless, same amount of potential that many people are dismissive of.
Beautifully said, Miguel. That's awesome. So it sounds like part of your why is providing opportunity for others where you might have not found the opportunity. It took a while to come to it. That was a really good story. It's a good story.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that's exactly right. It's like I said, from my upbringing, I always look to help those less fortunate, and knowledge is the most power that you could give anyone. So teaming up, in my role through IFMA, I found FaciliCast and Skills USA. One of my good friends, Tony Lillibridge, which I know you're familiar with, he put me in touch. He said, hey, I have this thing going on. I need some judges from the field. Could you come out and help out? And I said, absolutely. And then partnering that with my current mechanical contractor, JM Brennan. Matt and John, they're third generation owners, and they actually they put on an internal curriculum for our technicians called Brennan University. That curriculum spans, I think, 12 weeks out of the year, and then they take a couple months off, and then they come back again. So I want to be able to bring all this together and then have a pipeline, much like you had said, Jim, to me, from getting these kids from high school or college directly into the people who need them. I think there's a gap there between the skilled person and our current, what would you call it, hiring environment. You know, you really want to make these connections and they're not there. The kids are over here in left field playing with their gloves or their shoelaces, and then the professionals are out in right field looking at the bleachers, right? So
yeah, there you go. That's a great analogy, and I've talked about that a number of times myself, that industry is only capable in general of talking to a 40-year-old. Yeah, it's a struggle, and it's because the models haven't changed to allow them to be successful. And you and I can probably both agree that there still is another generation coming forward. They didn't turn off the spigot. The other generation is there. It's just that we as industry have struggled, and you enunciated that really well here on our FaciliCast here today. So are there other within the control space, within the built environment, are there other changes that you think industry ought to be making that you've had an aha for, that you said, you know, if only we could do this or that? Are there anything sort of things like that are striking you?
So in my current role, I have been privy to a lot of information that I once was not so fortunate to have. And right now, in a business development role, I've taken steps to increase my knowledge base on AI. Let's be honest, it's such a heavy topic right now with GPT-5 coming out, and a lot more of these tools that everybody keeps whispering, AI, 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 and nobody really knows what it means. And the industry is kind of giving that plastic smile and nod, like, you know,
we want that.
Yeah, we want that. Exactly. They want it, but they don't even know what it is. You often hear the word scary being thrown around. It's simply because these tools are so powerful on another level that even I have been just flabbergasted. I've been floored on what some of these, let's call them designer AIs, can do. That is a huge change that will be coming down the pipeline. Now, construction and service, especially in the Midwest, I'm going to say we're typically about 8 to 10 years behind the curve as to other faster pace moving industries. Obviously, tech changes by the second, if not, millisecond. Construction, 8 to 10 years behind. There's a steep curve that we would have to catch up on. But now is the time. I think taking some of these AI tools into our own hands and learning how to integrate them with not only building automation controls, because that would be the one-for-one like connection that most people could see. Right. But then you start thinking in facilities, okay, well, what if we lose this knowledge gap, or I should say, lose the foundation of knowledge that we've had, much like you were saying, generationally, it's been passed on, typically from, I'd like to say father to son, but, one generation to the next would probably be the best way to say it. From one
Yeah.
generation to the next, you and I had spoken about during COVID how we had a big drop off, or I like to refer to it as the changing of the guard, where there would usually be a very formal, sequenced exchange of knowledge, experience between one generation and the other. That did not happen for us, and I'll say us as a millennial, to put labels on stuff, whatever. But
Sure.
The generation before me decided, oh, COVID, I'm pulling out. Whether I'm 60, 65 and a half, they're just like, I'm out. I'd rather not be in the workforce and just pull out. That left guys like me moving into senior leadership positions with not a full toolbox, if it were, to teach the next generation, whether they be Gen Z or Gen Alpha. I don't even know what they call them anymore. But now I'm thinking we're going to have to rely on these AI to teach the younger generation, because they can put stuff together that I never could, and that probably nobody else in my organization can. So I think you're going to see one of the biggest changes being the implementation of these AI large language models and learning tools into our day-to-day. You're going to see technicians having a robust conversation with their AI superintendent. You're going to have accountants and HR personnel relying on these tools. And it's going to be a scary new world. And specifically for facility managers, now you're going to say, you can grab your tool, your phone here, point it at any piece of equipment and say, what am I looking at? And it'll tell you exactly what it is.
Yeah, pocket BIM, baby. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Pocket BIM. And the AI construct is interesting on a number of levels, and one of them has to do with employees that incumbent, mature, elder industries often look at technical advancements with a great deal of suspicion because of the fear of it upending their game, right? And two, for the line employees that they're concerned that their job might be eliminated because of some technology. But what has shown itself over and over again is the moment we implement new technologies, more and more people are needed to work with the technology, and increases the efficiency of the organization and operation. They're just doing slightly different tasks. It's neat. Who knew that would happen? And we see it.
Yeah, it's much more, and that's why I like to refer to them as tools, because if I'll give an example in marketing and advertising. I mean, it is the power of this tool would be something to this effect. You take a couple pictures of me, Miguel. You record maybe a minute or two of my audio, taking my cadence, my tone, my demeanor, my posture, my micro expressions, and feed that to the AI. It will reproduce a fully digital version of me, and it could deliver whatever message the author of said message would like to deliver via the vessel of me. It's very powerful. I'm gonna say we're in the uncanny valley of developing AI right now. It's not perfect, but it's perfect enough to give you what we used to call the heebie-jeebies, like kind of the goosebumps running up your arm.
Right, and I think it is the replication of personas that with malintent, of course, which is what concerns most of us. There are a wide variety of applications that AI is used for, and the 99.9% are used for good purposes, most certainly. But we will, as a species, will always be looking at the exception, and throwing it on the front page news, won't we?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that comes to kind of one of my other main changes that I would suspect coming down the line is the type of personnel. The type of personnel that we're going to be hiring. It used to be, Boiler Room Bob who'd get down there in his Dickies jumpsuit and put his waders on and muck through the poo-poo, to put it politely, to get the
Boiler
job
Room
done.
Bob, I love it.
Yeah, and I think you're definitely going to need that aspect because there's only one way to unclog a toilet. There's only one way to fix a sink. It's to get your hands dirty, as much as you need to. But a lot of the other problems are going to be dealing with how to prompt your AI so that it could do what you want it to do or tell you what you need it to tell you as far as information on your building, and how to mitigate a particular problem. If you don't have those, so number one thing, AI prompting is not inherent. It's not a way that you and I would be dialoguing right now. That's going to change, and the people who master that language and understand how those prompts work and are able to utilize those tools to their maximum efficiency will be the ones that prosper in our industry. And I think it's going to be on the highest level. You'll have a facility manager coupled with their AI, and then having their skilled labor, their skilled contractors, whether they be direct hires or subcontractors. That's where I kind of see the facility management world going in the next 10 to 20 years. And it's not bad because guess what? I can turn around and talk to these kids and say, hey, you want a 6-figure income? And they'll be like, boop, their ears perk up. You want to work anywhere in the world? You could manage 6 buildings, one in Tokyo, one in San Francisco, one in New York, one in London, one in Paris, and one in Spain, wherever you want. And there you go. You get to globetrot all around wherever you want to go, managing these buildings and living the life that you want. And you just didn't know it was there waiting for you.
Wildly different than Boiler Room Bob. And I think also in that regard, there is hope because the generation that is coming in were all born with an iPad in their hand or somebody's cell phone, whatever. They were born with digital stuff in their hand. That a cross section of the world of the first world can type at 3 or 4 years old is mind blowing for me from a wildly different generation. And I smile about that and I say, okay, well, we're talking about AI and its counterparts and those other aspects, considering the fact that these kids all were born with digital technology in their hands, unlike earlier generations that we took when we got new technology, we threw it in a toolbox. Here, these new students, young adults, they live and breathe it. And in fact, if you don't have the latest and greatest game with that, they're going to leave. They're going to go somewhere else because they expect that you're going to regularly change the technology to update so that they can do their best work with the least work, which is the smartest way to do it. Pretty smart.
Very much so. So not to derail us completely, but did you ever watch Back to the Future? Remember Michael J. Fox? Okay.
Yeah. Good.
Back to the Future #2, he finally goes into the future, into like the diner, and he sees these 2 kids playing a video game. But the kids are like smacking it on the side. They're like, how do you play this thing? Marty McFly walks up. He's like, oh, cool. And he starts like shooting the 6 guns. The kids look at him like, you got to use your hands like a baby toy? And then it didn't hit me until just recently. I'm like, oh my goodness, that's how my kids are going to talk to me. They're like, wait, you have to interface with something tactilely, like physically. You can't just Neuralink to it. And that is the Orwellian world we now live in, and it's sold to us like an iPhone. And I don't know if that's great or bad, but it's where we are at.
This is really cool. Miguel Monterrey, from J.M. Brennan out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, also the incoming president of IFMA Milwaukee, or South SCW, Southeast Wisconsin International Facility and Management Association. We're so pleased to have you on the FaciliCast, the liberal science of buildings.
Thanks, Jim. Have a great day.